Hey everybody, I'm Alice Keeler. I am a professional learning consultant for Orion Education and Training, and we would love to have you join us either here in Kansas or we can come to you to provide not just ed tech, but across the board. We have services all the way up to principal mentorship and superintendent mentorship, as well as just providing and helping with resources. We're not talking politics today or ever, but if you have been looking at the news yesterday and the day before, there is a hot topic about a particular photo. So the hot topic is this photo real? Like everyone's talking about the picture that was put out, and is the photo real? And so you'll see like on social media and even the news articles are asking that question. So is my photo real? No, it's not. How can you tell? Well, your first clue is in the bottom right. I have the Gemini icon that shows that I did ask it, hey, make me look like I'm like, what's up? But if I back up, you'll see my original photo. I was smiling in the street. This was taken at ISTE a few years ago. Wearing my backpack, but I just like the picture so much. So I asked AI, hey, change my picture, and this one is indeed not real.
Watch me do a cartwheel on this street. On this street, I did it.
That also is not real. I put that same photo into Google Gemini and said, show me doing a cartwheel, and probably that's about as good of a cartwheel as I could do. And I love how my hair looked so much nicer. Thank you, Gemini, for thinking I look younger and prettier. Always appreciated. But in today's day and age, is the photo real? Is the video real? We're seeing a lot of fake ones. So, for example, was this taken today? You'll notice that I look a lot skinnier in that picture because it's from 2019. That is a photo from 2019. And I added it into Google Gemini and I said, let me show you what I said. I said, please create a picture of me holding the same newspaper as the guy in the photo. So in that photo is the photo everyone's talking about. I don't want to talk about the photo. I want to talk about that he had a newspaper, and people are like, yeah, that could be faked. And I'm like, could it be faked? So I just took this off of, I think, NBC. I took it off a reputable news site, this photo. And I took this photo of me from 2019. And look at that prompt. It's pretty basic. I said, please create a picture of me holding the same newspaper as the guy in the photo. So let's go back and take a look at that. And it did. So this is the challenge that we are facing, is how can you trust what you see? The videos, the pictures. Literally anybody with an internet connection is able to create these fake pictures pretty easily. I mean, the quality of my prompt was just a few words and bam, I have something that I can have pretty convincingly trick you. So the moral of this story is trust no one. Trust no one. As we're thinking about teaching digital citizenship, this is something that I want to say to my students over and over again. Where'd you get that from? Why do you trust that source? Always check, because I just assume everything is fake. If something's on social media, if something's in the news, I always want to check it. So I saw one video earlier today, or I saw the video thumbnail on YouTube, which was trying to get me to click on it. And it did a good job. It was talking about what looked like this was clearly a car was driving over here, and this is what caused the damage. Look, these are tire tracks. And when he's given his evidence in the video, it look like tire tracks. But then I went and back checked that and looked more closely. His photo, I think, was doctored a little bit to look more like tire tracks, because the actual one, not so much. So whatever I see, I assume somebody is trying to get me to click or get me to watch, and I got to go verify that information. So I found this website. It's by Dr. Kathy Collins. So she has a book, Teaching News Literacy in the Age of AI. To be honest, I didn't read it, but I'm going to give you the quote from her site. Media literacy isn't about telling students what to believe, but showing them how to think. So as we're moving forward, we do assume that our students know how to do digital literacy, like they know how to do clicking on the mouse. Do they? Do they know keyboard shortcuts? There's a big gap between scrolling on TikTok and actually knowing how to, for academic or professional reasons, to use technology. I know there's a big push around let's get rid of screens in classrooms, but outside of classrooms, everybody's using a screen. So just banning them is not going to make them career ready. And it's certainly not going to help them to know when they should and shouldn't trust the media that they see. So when we're using digital tools, and I'm a big proponent of using paper, we got to balance it out. When we are using digital tools, we want to use it so we can help students learn how to more critically think and be more creative. And especially in a time when I don't know if that photo is real, that critical thinking piece is really essential. Now, AI gave me that quote. And then I downloaded the slide and I added it to the same Gemini chat. And I'm like, hey, show me, instead of holding the newspaper, have me hold this slide. So this is a fake. This is not a real photo. But it looks like I'm holding this slide, certainly. So since AI gave me the quote, I got, I need to check this out. So I looked it up. Of course, I looked it up. And how did I look it up? I took the quote and I put it into a Google search, and it actually gave me a list of websites about digital literacy. While helpful, what I was trying to do was to validate this quote that this person actually said it. Because AI is like, here's a quote. It made some sample slides for me that I didn't use, but it kind of gave me some ideas of stuff I might want to cover. And so I had to then change it in Google search to say, who quoted this? Where is this sourced from? And then I was able to find that web page by Dr. Kathy Collins. So then you can see me here. And this is also an AI photo. Look how skinny I look. It's an AI photo of me from 2019 that I made this morning looking at Dr. Kathy's website. So I'm always wanting to look it up. And now our question is, do our students look it up? I remember a few years ago, I overheard a conversation with my students. One of them said, I know it's true. I saw it on Instagram. As if Instagram is a reliable source. I'm going to tell you one thing that drives me a little bit crazy about Notebook LM is when I use Notebook LM and ask me to upload my sources. Well, the good thing about using Notebook LM is it's not searching the dumpster fire of the internet unless I ask it to search the dumpster fire of the internet. So if you do the fast research or the deep research, it goes out and finds different websites and it comes back with Reddit threads. I wouldn't necessarily call a Reddit thread a valid source. Like I would maybe use that as something to start with, but something I would definitely have to go fact check. So in this photo that I'd shown earlier, everybody's asking, is this real? So I started a Google search and the first thing I just typed in Snopes. And those first few words after I type Snopes, you know how it auto predicts what you're going to ask? I guess everybody is asking this, which is great. That's what we should be doing. When we're given media, we ask, is this real? And then how do you know it is? Where are you tracking down reliable sources? I was talking with someone many years ago, and they said something that was clearly outlandish. And I said, do you have a source for that? And they sent me a link to a website written by Tyler Durden, who is the main character in the movie Fight Club. That is not a reliable source. So, yep, you could find it somewhere, but then you have to go one step further and ask, is this source reliable? So how often are we doing any level of fact checking with our students? I know you hear them in the background talking about some different things. Do we jump on and just say, well, let's check that out? It's just kind of a normal thing that we do. Like, of course we would fact check. Of course we'd look that up. So the very first thing was about this photo that, again, everybody is talking about. Like even legitimate news articles, that's really their focus. Like this photo was put out. Is it real? And I would hope that we would actually ask this question no matter the topic, whether it's a famous person who is ill or whether it is just someone sharing a recipe that they made in their kitchen. It is really easy even to fake a photo of you being a great cook. So always fact check. Where did it come from? Now, here's the kicker is when I was looking up that quote, what is it showing me is an AI summary. So that's new. Like, how long ago did that start? Like in the last year? And so without even looking at the actual source, it's just like, oh, here's the information. Here's the information. How do I know that that AI summary is correct? So here I've done a Google search. I want to know if my quote is true. I'm looking at my source and it's saying, hey, here's some information about digital literacy. And I don't know, maybe that's true, but I actually want to go look at the actual source. AI summaries are not where we want our students finding the information because that's just another thing to fact check when we're in the middle of fact checking in the first place. Now, I'm a math teacher, and the first day of school, first day of school is about team building, but the first time I'm really addressing my students about content, I like to tell them that my favorite word is because. My favorite word is because. And so we're here in math class, not to learn and memorize steps, but to learn to be critical thinkers. So whatever you say, you got to be prepared to use the word because. Now, one of my best lessons is I used a baby shower game to teach inference. And so I had this slide. So I asked the students, what candy bar is this? Would you like to put your guesses into the chat for me? What candy bar is this? Now, I'm not going to let you get away with just giving your guess. I have a guess of Snickers, but I have a guess of Mars because, okay, I've got 2 votes for Snickers. Just because all of you think it, you still, because I've eaten a lot of them. That's a good one. But can we put some evidence in here? Is that when someone makes a statement, we ask them to provide, how do you know it? Marcia, thank you. Because it has peanuts, caramel, and chocolate. And I think it has nougat in there too, right? Because I see the peanuts, that allows me to think that this is a Snickers bar. So my students actually did really good with this, just like you did really good with this. But then, because of course I am adapting a baby shower game for my lesson, I was teaching 7th graders. I melted them into diapers and they had to guess which candy bar was melted. What candy bar is this? Because. All right, what do you think this one is? My students did a great job demonstrating inference. Patty thinks it's a Milky Way. It's harder to see, but because, what are you noticing in there, Patty, that draws you to that conclusion? So before AI was a thing, I'm wanting my students to justify their reasoning. And I don't think that changes no matter what you teach, because the point of me sharing that was my favorite word is because, but that's also my favorite word is digital literacy. I mean, are those different? Because digital literacy is looking for those clues and understanding how to verify. Well, part of it is understanding how to verify sources and that your source is a good source. So either way, it is a critical thinking task. I had a lot of votes for this. I'll go backwards. Had a lot of votes for Reese's. I was thinking that as well. It looks like there's peanut butter in there. Yeah, okay. It doesn't look like there's peanuts. Perfect. I love that. Digital literacy. So we want to ask our students. I always do this when I'm in class, right? They'll say something and I just like, I don't even have to say what's my favorite word, although I do the first couple of days. But my students know they have to give me the because. I have this awkward pause, and then we're just translating this. If you're not teaching math, is that where'd you get it? How do you know it's true? What's your evidence? Because digital literacy is cross-curricular, right? You can't just live in a silo. So one of the challenges that I had in putting this presentation together is a lot of the digital literacy sources are about teaching digital literacy, which is awesome. Some of you are absolutely tasked with explicitly teaching digital literacy. But I need to have some standards that I'm teaching every day, and I want to align them to that. So the first standard you can think about is the ISTE standards, ISTE. And that is about having students evaluate information, evaluate media. That's one of the standards. And for them to engage in ethical behavior when they use technology. So as you're writing up your lesson plans, it's definitely valid for you to throw some ISTE standards in there. However, I teach math. So it's nice to say, hey, I'm teaching an ISTE standard, but I also need the actual math standards that I'm doing for the day. So don't worry, this is not a presentation about math. So my math people, I got a little bone to throw to you, but for the rest of you, don't worry, I just have a couple of slides that I'm going to talk about math. So from the math standards I downloaded from the state of Kansas, because we are in Kansas here at Orion Education and Training. And one of the statements in the math standard says that we want students to engage in solving and discussing tasks that allow multiple points of entry and varied solution standards. So we want students to do problem solving and thinking and talking. And so this is a way I can translate this over as I bring resources in. How do we know these are good resources? I mean, even when I look at the pictures in the math textbook, some of them are just so bogus. My favorite example being a round ice skating rink. Like, we can have a critical discussion about, is this how we do math? And is this how we see? By the way, ice rinks are not round. It's to analyze just even the graphics and things that are in the sources that we have, let alone using digital sources. So as a math teacher, another way that I can bring this in is I can go for a Google search, and I look for bad charts. So I did a search on that. If you click on the slide, some of them are hyperlinked to my sources. So I did a search for bad charts, so I can go to this 9 bad data visualizations. And I can just right click and grab some of these pictures and ask students, what does this say? How do we know if this is helpful or misleading? A lot of charts and graphs on the internet are certainly misleading. So as a math teacher, or even as a non-math teacher, when we look at an image, the first thing we want to ask is this accurately represented? Are they trying to steer us in a particular direction? I saw a chart that showed in one particular county, they voted 90% for some person. But then it turned out that only 1% of the electorate even showed up to vote. So even though it looks like, wow, there's all this support for this person, the reality was that chart was manipulated by hiding how many data points are behind the chart. So that is one way that we can work with our students to critically analyze, is to just start throwing bad stuff in front of them. Like, why do we think this is bad? What do you notice about it? How much practice do they have looking at resources and actually asking, is this even a good chart? If you have never used the New York Times, what's going on in this graph? If you have never used the New York Times, what's going on in this graph? It is free for teachers. You just do a search for it. And every week they create a new graph where you just show the students the graph. And then they're supposed to find information, get clues from it, and hypothesize what is the headline. And then what do they notice and what do they wonder? So these aren't bad graphs. These are actually really good graphs. So I'm comparing and contrasting here. I'm giving my students things that I'm like, how would you critically analyze this? And then I'm giving them things like, what kind of information can you get out of this? Well, I'm not explicitly telling you all the data. So what do you think this is a chart about? Why do you think that? Because, my actual favorite word that I like to do with my students. So if you've never used that resource, please check it out. It is What's Going On in This Graph by the New York Times. And I believe that I do have that hyperlinked as well. That website is really great because it not only shows the graph of the week, but it has the history of graphs. So you can go back and choose which ones you think are interesting that you'd like to talk about with your students. Now, I use that as a math teacher, but honestly, you could use that with any class that you're teaching, because we want our students to be savvy in being able to analyze data and apply it in. There's no math day. There's no day of math that we do outside. When I'm doing math, I'm also doing reading. I'm also doing literacy. I'm also doing presentation skills. I'm using this graph in some other contexts. So I would encourage you to check out that resource. Another math standard in the Kansas Standards for Math said, facilitate discourse among students to build shared understanding of mathematical ideas by analyzing and comparing student approaches and arguments. But that analyzing and comparing, lots of great ways that we can bring in media and things that we see on our Facebook feed. I have done this a few times, that I've grabbed stuff off of my Facebook feed. I did a lesson with an English teacher on the Latin root word sect, S-E-C-T. So I went to Instagram and I typed in S-E-C-T as my search, and it came back with all of these posts that I screenshot, like a woman in front of a statue or a sculpture of scissors. And because you're going to bisect, and then sectional of a couch. And so I just got all of these pictures, and I had the students guess based on context clues. That's DOK too. It's a great critical thinking skill. What do you think that sect means? So bringing in those Instagrams, I'm always vetting it. Got to be a professional. I'm not just picking out random things for my students to do, but making sure it's appropriate and something that we can learn from. But we can find some of those things that our students might encounter every day and ask them, how would you analyze this? How does it apply to the standards? Now back to math for a second. Use dubious statistics. Headlines are intended to get you to read them. How many times have you clicked on a headline only to be really disappointed? The article was only this big. It was clearly clickbait. They actually don't even address what the headline says, or they're again giving you statistics that doesn't quite shake out when you dig a little deeper. Ooh, look at all the support for this politician, but we actually have a very small sample size. So things that we can critique and analyze, just try to work that into a regular curriculum. How often are we asking students to critique and analyze? So here's another thing. Influencers. My son will buy anything Mr. Beast is selling. He wants to get that Mr. Beast chocolate bar, and I bought some. They were on clearance, and turns out they weren't that good. Was he hawking high quality chocolate, or was he just trying to make a buck? Influencers are paid to post. They're paid to post. So if you look up Control C for influencers, you do a search, a lot of articles come up to show where these influencers were given what they were supposed to say, like, oh, I'm just using this product, making my skin look all glowy and fresh. But they forgot to take out where the publicist or the company, they sent them, hey, post this on Tuesday, and they accidentally put in the, hey, post this on Tuesday. That's a influencer fail for sure. But finding some of these sources where we can show students, hey, these people aren't giving you information. They're trying to influence you to purchase something. They're trying to influence you to watch, click, scroll, get information from them, even if the information is not accurate. And I think we see a lot of that going on, where the news that is being pushed at us is not being shared necessarily just to inform us, but rather to keep us locked in and to get information from them. So always approach it skeptical. Why are they sharing this? They're trying to get likes. They're trying to get clicks. So where can I verify this information? So if I zoom in here, it says, lady and a cat. Please see the approved caption below. See, she forgot to copy. She copy and pasted the whole email that was sent her. She forgot to edit that out. When we teach persuasive writing, we can ask students to look at the bias, the author's intent. So looking at influencers' posts, we can have students analyze and look for meaning. So outside of math, when they're teaching English, I can look at those standards and think, how can I have them analyze influencer posts, social media, articles that obviously have a bias, that are dubious about the source, or the source is hidden and really it's Exxon doing a infographic about fracking. Maybe the infographic about fracking is accurate, but you got to consider the source, that Exxon's probably biased. So where can I cross-reference that? Science standards require students to critique claims and evaluate whether they are backed by empirical evidence or mere anecdotes. So that's another subject, right? In science, we can pull in some of those influencer posts to introduce the idea of critiquing claims. And if you are a history teacher, we want students to analyze primary sources, recognize propaganda, government messaging, historical bias. So many articles that we can just pull from the news where we're not trying to get the information from the article, but rather to teach that bigger idea of what is the quality of our sources. So here's an example. If you are a government in 1943 and you're trying to get your citizens to conserve fuel, or in 2026, you are a lifestyle influencer and you're trying to sell nutritional supplements, they have something in common. So we can do some comparing and contrasting on that. They're trying to get people to change their behavior. So as you are reading the newspaper, as you are scrolling TikTok and Facebook, look for opportunities. Listen to what students are saying and go find those sources. And as a class, how can we analyze them together and work those into our assignments? If you're looking for a resource, you can go to inquirygroup.org. This is a website that provides you with sources and ideas for teaching digital literacy. So I hope that you will check that out as something to help you with your lesson planning as you try to introduce to your students how important it is that they are always questioning what they see. So now let's go into a few fact checking tips, and then we're going to wrap this up. So I always, when I'm using AI or I'm looking at a website, I find the source, I copy it, I paste it into a new tab, and I go look it up myself. Like I want to put my own eyes on that primary source. That's a habit that I have. So we want students to, when they look at a resource, just ask them, stop. We don't read the resource. Before we read the resource, before we're influenced by something that's biased, we go and we open up a new tab and we look it up and see if this is actually a trusted source. So we investigate the source before we decide if it's even worth the time to read it. We find coverage from multiple places. Who else is saying that? What's their credibility? And how do we know that they are a credible source? And so we want to trace those claims and quotes. So, like, I got a quote, but then I went and made sure that I saw it for myself, that it was an actual quote by that person. And that's something that we want our students to do. I do have a graphic organizer to share with you. If you are looking at the slides, you can just go ahead and click on that slide and it's going to open it up at tinyurl.com/source trust. I did create for you a graphic that we just want to ask students whenever they are using a source that they take the time to say, how do you know that it's accurate? All right, well, stay skeptical, friends. I AI'd this meme as well. And where is my certificate? Come on. I have one. We're doing questions. Anyone have any questions? And here is the certificate. Let me put that link here in the chat. You would like a certificate, please fill out this Google form. If you want the certificate for the other workshops that we did the previous weeks, if you look at the email that you'll get on Monday, it will also have the link to get the certificate for those. Oh, we had a few people give their tips in here. Lateral reading activity where we compare different articles and students give a credibility score. Exactly. That lateral reading is before you read it, you're going to now open up another tab and you're going to take the information that you find in the source you're reading and you're going to fact check it. You're going to look for it across different places and really determine if it is a credible source. Thank you, Miriam, for that. And Karen says, it is hard to get kids to put that extra effort in. It's nearly impossible, Karen. I will tell you